Welcome, everyone. I'm Serinda Martinetti, See Chicago Dance's Community Engagement Manager, and I want to welcome you to our first workshop of our Dance for Camera Fundamentals workshop series. This workshop series has been in progress in Enki and my brain for like the last 2 years. It is funded by the Walder Foundation. So we're extremely lucky to have this money to put these workshop series together. It's going to be a 2-year series, basically, with this intensive for the next 5 weeks, 6 weeks, however many weeks, lots of weeks, eight workshops. And then there'll be a part 2 next year, which we can tell you a little bit more about. And part 2 will also involve us giving you some money so that you can go out and create your own dance films, and also pairing you with a mentor to make all of your dance film dreams come true. So just a few things to start off. Glad that you could all be here. I wanted to say that just a brief description of myself, and I encourage you when we do our introductions that you do give a brief verbal description. My preferred pronouns are she and her. I am a light-skinned, biracial, Southeast Asian and European woman with short purple hair. I'm sitting in my home office with large windows behind me. I'd also like to recognize that my home sits on the traditional lands of the people of the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, the Ottawa, as well as the Menominee, Miami, and Ho-Chunk nations. I'd also like to acknowledge the following statements. We work in different communities with different resources. We have different sorts of practice, and we have different aesthetics and politics. We use different language based on our own communities and situations, but we believe that everyone in this room intends to be respectful. For this session, we seek to create an environment where people can speak freely without feeling worried that they will inadvertently offend someone else by the way they speak. We come together to share, reflect, question, and learn. And if you're someone who tends not to speak, I ask you to move into a role of speaking more. And if you tend to speak a lot, then move into a role of listening more. But this workshop series is really about discovery, connection, and questioning and learning. So please always feel free to ask questions, no matter what. I also want to let everyone know that this session is being recorded because there are people who will watch this later. Since you have registered, you will receive the link about 24 hours after the workshop series. We are also going to, use the chat function. We also have the Discord channel for extra engagement, and we'll be talking you through all of that in a moment. I'm going to pull up my agenda so that I know what I'm going to talk about. So I think everyone knows who I am by now. I do all of the things in Chicago. I'm a former dancer and actor. I produce dance and festivals all over town, music, dance, and theater. I'm from Australia originally. I've been here in the US for quite some time, and dance and working with dance and dancers and movers is a passion. And I am going to be doing these workshops with you because I don't know a lot about the mechanics of dance for camera. So I'd like to introduce you to the rest of the See Chicago Dance team. Firstly, Frank Conrath, who is our new media specialist. Frank, would you like to give yourself a quick intro?
Sure. Hi, I'm Frank. I'm the new media specialist at See Chicago Dance. I am a filmmaker. I'm not involved with dance. I don't know how to dance. You would never want to see me dance. Yeah, and excited to be here. Should I just pick somebody else to go?
Why don't we scoot over to Enki, since Enki is our main instructor and the other brains trust behind this whole series with me.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. It's great to see all your faces and photos. I'm Enki Andrews. I am a artist who does a lot of dance videos recently. Recently, I mean like the last 6 years. I came from a background of philosophy, that too, and photography, things that start with PH. I what? Use him and he. I am American, but of Colombian descent. And what else would I have said about myself? I've got about 15 years of experience doing photography and video combined. I've made about 30 some films about dance, and usually in a dance documentary style. We've won some awards. I've done some short videos, mostly 5-minute things. I kind of like 5 minutes is a sweet spots for me. We've done some short films of 24 minutes. I often work with my wife, Nejla Yatkin. She'll be exhibited heavily since she's an artist that I get to work with a lot, and I have too much content and video for that. I guess I'll hand it off to Vin and Irene.
Vin, would you like to give us a quick introduction? We've got some very special guests with us today, Vin and Irene, and also Jenny, who will introduce herself in a moment.
Great. Hey, great to meet you all. I'm Vin, and Irene and I work together. She's that way from me, whichever, on a video about a year ago. Like Enki, I'm a photographer first, and then I just stepped into video. So I'm coming in here as a noob myself, and it was a COVID situation. And I got to meet Irene in that process, and we created a video that you'll see together. So I've worked in Chicago with dancers for, I don't know, 20 years maybe. Initially as a graphic designer and a marketing capacity, and then I also support that with photography. And now I'm working extensively in video. My pronouns I have no preference: she, her, he, him, whatever. My people don't use pronouns for gender. And I am also in the Council of Three Fires. I'm in my office right now, which is in the traditional unceded homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. And additionally, tribes such as the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sac, and Fox also call my area home, their area home. And I'd love to just pass you off to Irene, if that's all right.
Hi, I'm Irene. She, her, hers, but I also don't care. I've been friends with Enki a long time, but we haven't seen each other's faces in like 2 years now. And like, I'm a dancer sometimes. I don't know. I think by now, I guess maybe I'm allowed to say that. And I also love playing with the camera, but I really have to say I'm quite amateur at that. I just play. So yeah, cool. Thanks so much for having us here. Oh, and yeah. Okay, no, that's it.
Go ahead. I'd also like to introduce our other guest, Jenny. Jenny, would you like to give yourself a brief introduction?
Sure. Hello, I'm Jenny Stulberg. I'm really excited to be along for this ride with you all. I'm originally Midwest born and created. I'm from Michigan, but I've been in New York and California since about 2007. Started off as a dancer, choreographer, and got into dance film in grad school, and just found a real love and passion for creating the two moving mediums and being able to take dance to places that it can't go on stage, and inviting in different audiences through film. So I do film, I do cinematography, but I'm mostly do editing and direction, and I'm currently in Los Angeles. She, her is typically what I go by, but whatever. And yeah, I have a mix of performing, choreographing, teaching, and filmmaking as my background. So I love blending all of the modalities and expressions. So I'm excited to be with you all.
And Jenny will be joining us a couple more times through the workshops as a guest instructor to really teach us more skills and a different perspective. So now I would like to talk to everyone that's in the room right now and just hear a little bit about yourselves. Please tell us your name and your preferred pronouns, and maybe just a couple of words about where you're coming from, what you do in your movement practice, and really what it is that you would like to get out of this workshop series, what you want to learn, or maybe it's a question. So actually, we also didn't introduce Kennedy Ward. Kennedy is See Chicago Dance's administrative assistant, and they are also participating in this workshop. So Kennedy, I'll start with you, and then if you could pass to somebody else as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Kennedy. I have a background in performance, mostly in choreography with a bit of dance history and art history. I am here to be a fly on the wall and a friend for See Chicago Dance to do some administrative things, but I also would like to try to pick up any knowledge that I can, get a couple more wrinkles in my brain. My pronouns are they, them, she, her. I am excited. I have snacks specifically for this workshop, so hopefully that will keep me motivated and focused. I think I will kick it over to Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire. I've been in Chicago for only like 2 years now. I am ops coordinator of Meadows Dance Collective, and then I just kind of bounce around town, dancing and things. My preferred pronouns, I also have a 3-month-old puppy, which is why I might mute and turn off my camera because she's a handful. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Can you tell us about what you would like to learn through this workshop series, or a question that you have?
Yeah, I have taken a couple just like regular photography workshops. I'm really into photography, very amateur. Don't ask me to take your picture. So I just want to further that skill, and then dance on film is something I've always pretty much been interested in. So just learning how to capture movement on camera pretty much is what I'm hoping for. Do I pick someone else? I'm gonna kick it to Larissa.
Oh, Larissa, you're on mute.
My name's Larissa. I'm not a dancer, but I like filming dancers. And I think Irene was at something last year with Kinnery and others that I was videoing. So yes, I'm a photographer, videographer. I'm getting into my drone work too. So I've seen some things with dancers on the ground that a drone is filming. So I want to incorporate that, but I love creating on that side of the equation. So
tell us a little about why you wanted to join us.
Well, because I want to understand, to be able to for example, if I see something, sometimes I realize the dancers don't see what I'm seeing. And so I need to be able to communicate with them if we're going to, redo something, or they just because it's a collaboration. It's not a one-way street. So.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have you here, that you could join us. Thank you so much. Would you like to hand off to someone?
Oh, how about Phaedra?
Hi, Larissa. Thanks for the kickoff over here. I'm Phaedra Darwish, and I pursue, teach, and always am learning more about the art of Middle Eastern dance and bringing that to audiences in Chicago who perhaps have not seen different types of Arabic dance before. During COVID, I think we all had to have our video dance experiences, and that was definitely a new beast for me. I had some artistic collaborations during this time in the pandemic that I was very proud of, and when I did submit them to film festivals, I asked for critique and feedback, and I am learning slowly, what makes a video dance, a dance for video film interesting. And I was fortunate to have a film that we made win with a collaboration of Chicago dancers of many different styles. And I did, that festival had workshops in it on lighting and video for dance. And I'm learning all the time why that film worked and why my other submissions perhaps in the past didn't. And I think it's fascinating, and I'm really interested in learning more about the dancer's relationship to the camera. Thank you for putting this workshop together, See Chicago Dance. I really appreciate the opportunity that you are bringing to this community. Hi, everyone. Bye.
Rika, you haven't spoken. How about you tell us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Rika. Here, Chicago homebody and dancer, choreographer, among other things. The she, her, hers. And I think it was really cool, especially like what Larissa was mentioning, just the different perspectives that are involved if you're on stage versus where the audience or whoever the person is watching is going to be, and how important the collaboration or just the aesthetics of understanding how things are perceived or presented. So yeah, just need to have another perspective. So thank you for having this class.
Thanks. And the last person on my screen, I think, is Murder Mummy. Are you there? Would you like to introduce yourself? You're on mute.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, so I'm actually about to have my break at lunch, so I'm a school teacher also. So I'm Irene Mommy. I'm a Chicago food worker. My pronouns are she and her. I've been dancing since I've been a child, Chicago food worker. And started off west side of Chicago, then veered off to the south side of Chicago. It's a Chicago-based dance that derived from house music, which comes from juke. And juke music, if you're from Chicago, you know the raunchy-based music, dancing with each other on. So that's kind of the basis of where I come from. On the lines of just taking my dance to a further and putting it into theater, becoming first for work soloist in theater. So I'm most definitely excited about that. I'm here just to try to expand my knowledge more, just using everything virtually. I think a youngin who's trying to spearhead a lot of things. I have my hands on a lot, so just trying to see how I could better perfect the videography work. And I'm not unfamiliar with videography work. I did do a short documentary film empowering young women in Chicago for work, which is called I Am Queen. I do a lot of things, but if you want to know more, you can just check me out at www.mommy.com. But yeah, I'm just here to just try to gain further knowledge on how to use my virtual powers.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sure we're going to be learning more about you as we go along. So for today's discussion, we're really talking about inspiration. And that is why I have Vin and Irene here. Early on in the pandemic, when I just felt like the world was falling apart, this film popped up in my newsfeed through Pivot Arts Festival, and it was something that I watched unashamedly over and over again because the film made me really happy, and it just at that moment felt really inspired to be like, dance is not dead. Oh my God, I need this. And that's part of the reason why I really wanted them as part of this discussion. We're going to watch the film and then, you know, ask Vin and Irene questions, and we're going to hear about why they put it together and what their inspiration was. And, you know, we're also going to hear from Jenny as well about the work that she does and her inspiration and where she finds it. But I also want to hear from you all about what is your inspiration? What is that seed that you want to water? How are you going to grow your work? So I'm going to hand it over to Frank, and we're going to watch the short film together. That it still makes me happy whenever I see your film. So either Irene or Vin, this was created for the Pivot Arts Festival, correct? How did it come about? How did you guys meet?
We met the day we shot this.
So how did you know to were you put together? Was it random?
Well, so Julianne had asked me to contribute to something to the, like, it was already going to be an online festival by the time she asked me to join this. And she was like, can you make a 1 to 4 minute film? And I was like, yes, every dancer in the city, we got our phones, we like stick them against the wall, done. And then I was like, oh, but it's like Pivot, I need to like have ideas. So I had like a bunch of ideas just in the back of my mind. And like I had this big red coat. I got that at like the Brown Elephant one day. It was on the mannequin, and I remember like I was on the fence about it, and they almost made me take it from the store. It was this huge. I mean, I think of it as like the size of a refrigerator. It's so ridiculous. It was so alive to me, and like it had been something that I wanted to do for a long time, but I didn't really know how to do because I knew I couldn't do that, just sticking a phone on the wall or something, because someone needed to see things. So I needed someone to see it and to see things like the closeness of the coat. And like Julianne had said early on that like if we needed help filming, we could get somebody, but she didn't say who it was or like who, like what kind of help would be offered. And I thought, it's okay. But then I had actually already finished what I thought I was going to send to them. And then I was like, well, who is it? And she said, it's Finn Reed. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. Like, I really, like when she was describing it, I thought she would like have someone stand at the door to your apartment to be a tripod looking into your apartment while you do a dance in the hallway or something. Like, I really wasn't expecting like to be able to work with someone super, super awesome, cool. And so when it was Vin, I was like, let me just throw my project in the trash and start over. Yeah, and so that's how that came about.
Oh my gosh, I just want to lean in there, like, don't be underwhelmed. Yeah, and from my side, I hollered at Julianne when COVID happened because she was planning a live festival. I was like, what do you need? And I've got a background in photography, had not really shot video. She's like, can you shoot video? And I was like, yes. So I was introduced to Irene, and really like the things that I just brought was a background in lighting, right? Like, but we didn't know what we were doing. We knew each other in the community. Like, I was like totally aware of her work. I was like, awesome, I'm so excited. But it's like strange days of COVID at the very beginning, where it's like, you know, like 10 feet social distancing and masked up. And, you know, so there was like a conversation between Irene and I where we just like set our comfort levels with each other. And like the fun thing was like in that, it's like, I've got this coat that I'm going to cover myself up with. And, you know, like there's actually like a lot of ideas that, you know, are just born out of that, like getting to know each other. So we did a quick, I just brought a bunch of lighting down to Irene's apartment. I had seen way too many photos of cameras leaned up against a wall. And I think that, you know, my biggest goal at the time was just not to have the ceiling in the shot, because that's like every dance video is of the ceiling and the dancer's like here. So, and then we just started having fun and collecting as much material as we could and sharing as many ideas all around the COVID experience of being trapped, of being invisible, of being, you know, loud, and, you know, all of those things that we were going through. We just had a personal conversation about what that was feeling, and then collected material, and then composed it in the edit.
I was actually, I don't know that my thinking was so complex. Like, then came over and I was like, check it out. I have this coat. I also have this red chair. I also have this other red thing. I also have this other red thing. I have these red shoes. I have this, like, all this stuff. I just like started pulling it out and throwing it on the floor. And he was like, no, 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 no.
So it really was. I mean, we sat down and I was like, what is every red thing that you have? Like, we had the coat. So I was like, what, you know, we're building a story, right? And the space is part of that story. So I knew we needed to show the environment, and we also needed to show Irene and build that balance. So we started with like, what's every red thing you have in this apartment? What is, we gave the coat a persona. It was like really important. Like, Irene works with objects and sculpture.
The coat has a persona.
Right, exactly.
We didn't give it to.
Well, thank you. You're correcting me. It's totally right. But I got to meet the coat, and I got to learn more about the persona. And then we figured out how, you know, to get that energy into the camera. You know, that's Irene's gift as well. So, and then we did that with some of the other objects. It was just like, what's your relationship? What's the, you know, to draw those connections. And then we just figured out, like, we need to see the big picture, and we need to get close. And when do we need to make those choices? And we collected a lot of content in both ways.
I have to say, a lot of it was completely suggested and framed and like composed by Vin on the spot.
I
felt that.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Irene. I think that's just the nature of a good collaboration, is getting excited with your partner, leaning in, and we really enjoyed the hell out of coming up with stuff like so there are actually like 3 Alices so far. There's also a yellow Alice and a blue Alice. I mean, we've continued it. And then like the other exciting thing is that in this process, you know, a big part of shooting video actually is choreography, is choosing like when you move, when you're still, and how you're partnering with your subject. In this case, it was just Irene, so it is a, you know, a duet. And so like quickly I'm realizing like, oh my goodness, I'm like, you're choreographing me at the same time, and I'm kind of like controlling this choreography. I didn't expect to do that. And so there's a 2-way choreograph thing that happens. I'm not a dancer at all. I very much need to lean on Irene or take those cues from my partner. But then I started doing a lot more video work, working a lot with musicians. And I quickly like pulled Irene in as a second shooter, because I was like, you're a choreographer, you know dance, like you will know how to move and partner with these musicians that don't even know you're partnering with them. But it is there's a 2-way street between the camera movement and the choreographer. And I've got a background in audience development. So like, I love watching an audience watch a show. For me, being behind the camera, I get to share the gaze of the audience, right? And it's that experience of like when a dancer stands still, your eye travels, and when a dancer moves, your eye follows the dancer. And from the camera experience, it's like, I need to give people that audience experience of like when they can look around a room, and when they might not. I don't want to send them around a room if they need a moment to connect with the artist. And so like, for me, it's really fun. I'm like not a dancer, and I just purely am like, how can I reflect the audience experience from this side of the camera? And then Irene, being a dancer and a choreographer, even though she doesn't use those terms, I do, she was able to inform me and then that's where the partnership happens.
I also want to say that like my own relationship to the camera is like sometimes you're using the camera to capture what's there, and sometimes what's happening in the camera is not happening in real time and space. And I think that's something that's really interesting to explore, and allows something like this was never a dance in real life. This was only a dance on the camera. This is only a dance like, yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything too smart to say about that. I think that's just what it is. Like first I didn't have a choreographed dance, but also like that it didn't interest me so much to have one for something like this. And I think that's been true for a lot of the things that Vin and I have done together since. Like rare is the time that I necessarily understand the piece before we do it. And before it's like completely.
So how long did it take you to shoot what you shot? And did you use everything, or was there a lot more that you filmed?
We shot it in less than 2 hours.
I was going to say 2 hours. I don't quite remember.
It was about 2 hours.
Yeah, and that actually includes the time that we were exploring. I mean, I think probably like in the camera is about an hour. It was a pretty constant, like we were fast. We were, we collected our ideas, and then like I'm really big on like over planning and then throwing away all my plans and going by instinct. And Irene is kind of the same way. Like we're both just obsessed.
I don't plan at all.
Oh, come on.
No, yeah. I don't plan. I mean, before you came, I was like, I should like try to like come up with a lot of like stuff, but I didn't.
Research and let's say mental collecting instead of planning. That is, a nature for both of us. We did not use it all. There were lots of different cuts. A lot of like, I'm a big fan of collect it. No idea is bad. And, that's the beautiful thing about digital is you can just have it. And I would say we probably used about maybe a third, which that would be a lot. A tenth is respectable in my experience of what you collect to what you use.
So you just came in with the idea of this red coat that already had this persona, and then just kind of like put it on and played and see what happened in front of the camera?
Yeah, we also walked in with the COVID experience. We did have a call to like describe like where we're at in this moment.
Yeah, but I wasn't really thinking about that. I mean, I think it's not possible to not have that experience inflect the experience just because that's or the film, just because that's where we were. I mean, of course, I'd had the goal, like, oh, maybe I should make up a dance or something. Like I had a song in mind. And actually at the time that we shot it, we didn't have the rights to the song. I was just playing it on a loop as we were working, or like honestly playing. And like, I mean, those had been just similar. Like I had the coat for probably 2 years before this occasion came up, or like that song was something that I heard in a rehearsal once for something that didn't get used. And so like those elements were there, but like, I don't know if I can call that planning. I think I can call that fate, or it's moment to happen.
I just want to emphasize one thing that Irene said, which is the having the music playing while we worked. If you work with a videographer, like Irene had me coming in, Irene has that music in her head already, like a dancer choreographer does. I don't. It's so important to get the person behind the camera in that music as well. And nothing is precise to music, but we used it, and we just kept playing the same song over and over and over again to just keep that speed or tempo, pacing in the camera too.
And I bought tomatoes. Yeah.
So you have this whole series of the different colors. What is your plan to, what comes next?
Well, it was funny because like that was the day that we met, And then because of that, Vin was like, oh, I made this dress for Hedwig, yellow triangle, right? And you were like, oh, I want to make like a bigger one for you to play with. And then, sorry, did you want to talk first? Just like,
no, it doesn't matter. No, I mean, like a big fan of throwing stuff away, like huge fan of, you know, throwing all your film away and using 10% is great. Likewise, I made costumes. I had a dress that got thrown away on a previous project. And I was like, oh my gosh, Irene, you know how to play with this dress. And really it's the objectification of it. It's like, really, it's not a dress, it's an object. And so I had to like sew up that dress for Irene, and it's yellow. Yeah, go ahead.
But you didn't do it right away. Because like when somebody says something like that to me, I'm like, oh great, like is it happening today? And like it didn't happen for like another 8 months or something, 10 months. Yeah.
Like,
that's
yes, like maybe 1 month. Thank you for throwing me under the bus there.
No, that's not why. No, it was because like he mentioned it, and like then I was like, I'm getting this amazing dress, and like I waited every day for it. But like then of course it was not a clear place where this dress would be, and also Vin had talked about like the relationship of that dress to Bauhaus aesthetics, and that was something that he was really interested in. That's more his expertise, also as someone who worked for an architecture firm. And not my training, like that's his training as a designer. And it happened that like when I saw this wallpaper at the Smart Museum, which was designed by this artist, Claudia Wieser, who also names Bauhaus as one of her influences. And also because of the coloring of that particular wallpaper, that became like, oh, this is actually where this dress can happen or needs to happen. So, and then because, well, I think Vin can probably explain this better, because there was like, I'm gonna get it wrong. Is it Red Square?
Is what red? Oh, Bauhaus, yeah. I mean, yeah, but I mean, that's
yellow
not,
triangle, blue
yeah,
circle.
yellow triangle, blue circle, but that's not, yeah.
And because of that, I basically was like, then we have to do all three.
So yeah, so Alice and Alice came out of, was after we shot, I think Red Alice is called Little Tomato or something, and it just because Irene and I had like a curiosity festival in preparing it, it felt very Alice in Wonderland to us. So that's where Alice happened, and then yeah, Yellow Alice became that coat is a rectangle. Yellow Alice became a triangle and went to the Smart Museum and will be shown later through the Smart. And Blue Alice happened in a live performance. And it's a circle. It's a massive, massive dress. It's all a circle.
Which was like totally inspired and designed by them. Like the dress.
Not inspired.
The dress.
Yeah. Inspired by Irene.
Makes the dance.
It's really interesting to hear about like how all of these seemingly disparate things come together for your inspiration, you know, objects and costume and space and, you know, these other ideas of the Bauhaus movement and architecture, and that you can see all of that in the piece, I think. I also want to open to questions if anyone has questions or comments, something that you want to share. Enki, you're muted.
You're muted. You're still muted.
Okay, better? Okay, great. So I wanted to just get everybody kind of like on the same page. We wanted to create this course and we wanted to begin with Irene and Vin so that we could talk about inspiration, because that's kind of what the philosophy I'm coming from is that inspiration is essential and it's kind of primary. And so we're having them talk so that we can explore inspiration, inspire you. And the scope of the course is, the intent is to create kind of harmonious camera movement. and we want to get the most out of the least. So it's really kind of interesting how Irene and Vin just used like a simple room and did such a wonderful, wonderful work in a very short time because they had such a great inspiration. So that's kind of like where the philosophy of this course is coming from. So I want people to be thinking about inspirations because, you know, if you don't have an idea, it can be very hard. But once you have an idea, then things can just kind of like avalanche down and you're like, oh, that was so easy. I just tipped over that rock and boom, and everything just happened. So that's where we're, that's how we're like going to be structuring the course around and trying to get people loose. So we're starting with that. But I want to continue on. I just wanted to get people kind of like oriented. It's like, why are we starting here? This is why.
If I can just make I think that's a really great point about inspiration. And and also that film was very lovely. Thank you guys for that. It also made me happy. So I see, Surinder, why you wanted to focus on that. I agree. I think inspiration is super important. And to speak for myself, I feel like sometimes it doesn't come until you start playing. So this idea that like this wealth of inspiration can kind of skyrocket you, and then all of a sudden you can get going with the project. But I encourage people to not worry that they have to have this great idea of inspiration that will blow everyone away before you start making something. That knowing that just by starting and trying and saying yes and beginning, that's sometimes when the inspiration comes. And I think that it is so much richer, and the project and the piece can become and can have so much more of a life once you find out what that inspiration is, because it has to mean something to you in order for you to want to put time and energy into it and for it to actually really come to life. But I feel like know that it doesn't necessarily, inspiration isn't always the first piece of the puzzle. Sometimes it starts with play and investigation, and then the inspiration comes. But I think that that's a really great point. Thank you.
I love that. I just want to say that's my experience as well. If you don't have the inspiration, just start playing. I mean, I mean, that was Irene and I, like, we need to get to know each other. Like, we weren't inspired to work together. We were excited to work together. But, you know, we just sat on her floor and it was like, pull out every red thing. And then all of a sudden she's pulling out like ducks and wooden toys. And I mean, there's this like wealth of like play. There was just like, okay, and I'm like sketching. I'm like, we have to do a storyboard. We have to do, you know, and then after I do all that, I just crumple it up and throw it away. And it's like, okay, now let's go play again. So there is like, it's play can lead to inspiration, but then inspiration can lead to play. And actually it feeds. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. Actually, I'm like inspired. What does that mean? Like, I don't know. Like, but playing, I know what that is.
So I wanted to kind of ask the other participants who are attending here, Claire and Larissa and everybody. First, I wanted everybody to know we're going to have some instruction. We're going to have this kind of like guiding philosophy, and we're going to try to structure the course into kind of like a philosophy section. Today is inspiration, and that actually is going to carry through the whole course. And then we're going to have some technical parts where we go into fundamentals of camera operation, ISO, aperture, shutter speed, ways of working with those things, how to get the most out of it. And then we're going to have these mini projects, which are going to hopefully inspire people to be like, okay, I've learned a little bit over here. I already knew that. I want to just combine this idea with that idea, and how can I bend these two philosophies together? I don't want people to feel like, oh, they have to produce something great, right? The goal here is not great. The goal here is play, have fun. There's no right, there's no wrong. I don't know everything. I make mistakes, and mistakes are, for me, the funnest way to do things. And I think the reason kids have so much fun is because they're like, I was playing, I wasn't taking myself seriously. I had a pen, I found a surface, and then I went crazy. And that's really kind of like where I'm coming from. I want people to be like, hey, I have a camera and I have a body. Let's play. So that's where I'm coming from. And I hope that everybody is also eager to do that. You're not going to be able to just sit back and be like, oh, I was just sitting here and I just watched this little show. There's going to be little mini projects, and you're going to have to like make something in like 15 minutes. So it's just a silly sketch, and it'll be there for a little bit, and then it'll be gone, and then we'll go and we'll play with something else, and we'll throw it away, and we'll go to the next thing. And hopefully through this process of play and engagement and whatever, you'll discover something, and that little tiny accident will be like, oh, I could use that. That would be useful in this other circumstance. It didn't work here, but maybe over there it will work. And I want you to be collecting rocks, and you're just going to collect rocks and collect rocks and collect rocks. And eventually you're going to be like, oh, if I just push these things this way, like a kid when they make a tower, you build it up and then you knock it over, and the knocking over is the fun part. So, you know, that's where I'm kind of coming from here. So I guess fundamentally though, what I need to know is everybody has clearly a webcam. Does everybody have a camera? I want to hear from all the students, like call you students or participants. I would like to know what kind of camera you have access to. And there's, I mean, I just need to know that, the basic one there. Whether you have a tripod, and whether you have any kind of like editing capacity. And if you're familiar with how to upload something to YouTube. So I'm just going to go structurally on my screen here.
Before we do that, while everyone's gathering their thoughts, we've got a few minutes left with Vin and Irene. So does anyone have any burning question that they would like to ask Vin and Irene? Rika.
So seeing your, and also it was awesome. I really, really, really liked it. And wow, happy from tomatoes, you know. But anyway, after making that final cut and having that finished, here it is, then did you have any other, oh, if we had one more day, or if there was just one more hour, I would have done this, or I wish we could have done that, or, you know, the costume, or maybe if there was a, you know, tomato part 2, then, you know, kind of thing. Like, did you have any kind of thing hit you once that now you've seen it and it's being presented?
Irene, do you want to answer that?
I mean, you know, well, whenever I see myself on screen, I'm like, oh, why didn't you dance better or something? like what were you doing there? Or like, there's a pointed foot where I'm like, why were you pointing your foot? but like, not actually, no. I was really more like, oh, how do we make more? Like, how can we do more? Yeah.
It's such a great question, because the same thing happens for photography. As soon as you go into editing, you're like, oh, why didn't I put a light there? There's a whole bunch of, you know, and the great thing is the next project, you know, like not linger, you know, because it's in the can, it's done, you know, I'm not going to, you know, and then it is like, hey, let's do this again. And I can do this better. And that's the most exciting thing, is like going to the next one and taking that knowledge with you.
I mean, I think also because we had structured this one so much as play on so many levels. Like there was no like, well, for me anyway, there was like no vision whatsoever. Like, it was more like, oh, let's see what happens. And like, then, yeah, it happened. I don't know.
I have a question. How long after you finished filming, how long did the process take from finishing filming to like, and working on it to finishing it? Like, how long was that duration?
It was so fast. That was really
and yeah, your recording was 2 hours. But how long did it take to finish it all, edit and all that stuff?
I think it was about like 3 to 5 days, right? It was really fast. I mean, because we were on a deadline for the festival.
It was like due like the next week or something. It was very, very fast.
It was very fast. And it was, I put together a cut. I just very much from behind the camera, I needed to put together a cut. And then Irene looked at that and was like, no. And I uploaded all the footage. So she's got minute markers, and she went through everything and is like pulled out minute markers. And I went through all of that. And then we just figured out what the structure was, that, you know, everything's out of sequence. And then there were some things where like she wanted to be here, and I would have the thing where it'd be like, well, we can't have the chair outside unless you go get the chair and take it outside. Or, you know what I mean? There's like some of those little like fussy details on my side of the world that actually has gravity in it. And Irene lives in a world that doesn't involve gravity. So yeah, so that's part of the collaboration. I think it was probably about 3 to 5 days. Yeah. I find it useful to just put together a cut, know it's going to go in the trash can and be like destroyed. But just putting something down, sometimes it's easier to say no to something than to know what the yes is. And, you know, and it's just like a communication tool. So the first cut, I could do it fastest just because I had the skills. And Irene was like, you know, you totally can say no to this. Nobody's getting hurt. But then that quickly got us to where our yeses were.
I also feel like the first cut was probably like 85 to 95% there. Like
maybe.
I mean, I do remember, like, I did appreciate being able to see all the footage and go through it and be like, oh, these are the moments that really strike me. And like, these are the moments that convey a story we didn't even know we had. But yeah, I mean, definitely the first cut was not trash. It was not trash.
It's a process.
It was the structure. It was the skeleton. It was the skeleton. So.
Well, it is just on 1 o'clock right now, and I think we need to take a break, and I know Irene and Vin are going to move on. So thank you both for your time today and speaking with us about your inspiration and sharing your film with us. And again, yeah, that it came out in a moment in the pandemic early on where I really needed something, and that was it.
Thank you. I mean, yeah.
Thank you so much.
So thank you, Vin and Irene. Participants, we're gonna just feel free to mute yourself and stop your video. We're gonna take a quick break, maybe grab some snacks. I'm gonna finish my lunch, and then we'll be back to talk about more things.
And how long?
Let's do 5 minutes, 5-ish minutes.
5
so
minutes
I'll see you
for
all
everybody?
in 5.
Okay, see everybody in 5.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, for hour 2 of our workshop. We're gonna hand over to Frank, and we're gonna and Enki and Frank are gonna talk about kind of like what the rest of the course is going to look like, and also some technology and tools that you're going to need. So a little bit of an orientation. In the email that we sent out, we talked about Discord. So Frank is going to tell you what Discord is and how we're going to use it. Also, just to let everyone know, I mean, I know I put it in the email, but just to reiterate, we try and build on this series. So from one course to another, there certainly might be things that you don't really want to know about. Like Larissa, you probably know a ton about how to work a camera. So some of those skills you might not need to watch, but you know, we'll be doing a lot of talking through the course as well. So I encourage you to come in for whatever you can, but also each individual workshop you have to sign up separately for, and that'll give you the Zoom link, but it also lets us know, even if you can't, you know, come to us live, I mean, I'll call this live, we'll send you the recording link so that you can watch it in your own time and get what you need out of it. And then through the Discord, any of the tasks that we do, you can actually still engage with us and do those tasks and ask questions by using the added engagement tool of Discord. So there's these workshops, lots of talking. Basically, each workshop is going to be broken out into 3 sections. The first one is we're going to kind of like the philosophy. We're going to talk about stuff. We're going to have our special guest present something, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and Enki and Frank will teach us something, you know, the skills portion where you'll need your phone camera, your phone, or your DSLR, whatever you're using, that will take you through those skills. And then we'll take another break after we've all learned together. And then we're going to do a mini project together that, you know, our special guest instructor will take us through. So then we'll introduce a mini project. You'll have time to like turn off your computer camera and go do the thing. And then we come back and we talk about what you just did, what you just learned, questions that you might have. So that's kind of the overall structure. Frank, would you like to tell us about Discord?
Yeah. So, who doesn't know what Discord is at all? I've never heard of it. Okay, Jenny. It's got some kind of. Okay, great. Well, if you've heard of Slack or any of these other platforms that allows you to communicate with a lot of different people on its own segment so that nobody else can really, from the outside world, see what's going on. It's very similar to that. I have dropped the link in the chat for our Discord server. On this Discord server, here, I'll share my screen so that we can, if it's here, come on now.
I'm presuming everybody knows how to use the chat in Zoom. Just
that's true too.
Yeah. Is anybody not familiar with how to use the chat in Zoom? I can't see you, Murda, and I can't see you, Phaedra. You're good. Phaedra's good.
Desktop. There we go. Okay. So if everybody can see my screen here. Excellent. Okay. So, we got a couple people that have already come on. Excellent. So this is just kind of like the home screen. Right now I'm on Workshop 1. Within Workshop 1, you're going to be able to find the Red Alice film untouched as well to go ahead and look through anything that we mentioned during the workshop that has links. You'll be able to go to Workshop 1 and find those. They'll be pinned all the way at the top. Here's another place too that you can go ahead and make a comment about the class, right? You could direct it to anybody that you see on the side of the screen. So if you wanted to ask Enki a question very specifically about Workshop 1, you could. You just go ahead and type in Enki and click his name and be like, this is a really stupid question, but I'm just going to ask him what's up, right? And it's going to go ahead and tag him immediately, and he will be able to see that, hey, somebody asked me a question, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it. So we have that for all the workshops here. Very specifically, if you wanted to find out more about what we talked about here with Inspiration Workshop 1, this would be the place to ask the questions. We have rules and information that we will fill in with some just basic guidelines and rules. Announcements of anything that Enki or me or Surinder or Kennedy or any of the mentors really want to push out. Mentor contact information, we'll make sure that that's filled with. So if you wanted to talk to, oh my goodness, their names are totally escaping me. But if you wanted to talk to any of the mentors, you could definitely do that there. Calendar, and then of course any software apps. Enki has been just absolutely putting a whole bunch of great stuff here for you guys to take a look at, to go ahead and check out any of those videos and anything to really learn how to do cool stuff. When you see here on the side here that some people have their names in gold and some people have their names in green and some people have their names in gray. If your name is in gold, then you have full editing rights. So that won't be anybody of the people participating here. That's myself and Enki and Kennedy and Surinder. We're just Chicago dance people, so that's why our names are in gold. Anybody that's in green is one of the mentors. So just in case you see somebody comment on your question or a comment that you made that's in green, then you know that's one of the mentors. And then if it's in gray, it's one of the participants. The goal here, and Surinder kind of touched on it as well, is that this will be an evolving thing. On Discord, what we're hoping to have happen is that this community of the people that we have in this room right now can go ahead and talk about different films that they may want to work on, that will be able to then grow and have a whole bunch of momentum going into next year when we start talking about more post-production marketing and then entering your film into film festivals. It will be live that entire time. Encourage you that, you know, if you tag one of us, we'll answer, to be able to answer questions and hopefully create some really cool stuff. And then also that you're able to then invite other people to the Discord channel that might be interested in it and may not have seen the workshops, or once again, like if they're like, oh, I didn't even know about it until workshop 3, totally fine. In those workshops, we'll always have the full recording of this, so that they can go ahead and rewatch it. And if they find out about it once the whole workshop's over, it's not a big deal. We want to build the community, so feel free to invite people and to try to collaborate with people. As far as YouTube goes, when we do these mini projects, we're going to just ask you to go ahead and upload those to your own personal YouTube channel. If you do not have a YouTube channel, it's really easy to, you just use a Google email. If you don't have a Google email, create one. Then you automatically have a YouTube channel. And you can go there, and as you're uploading a video, which would be up in the, hold on, let me show you real quick. Really easy to do. Dun, 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 dun. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Okay. Right, so this is my own personal one here. Go away. Okay, so create would just be the button that you clicked on, upload a video. And then here is where you drag whatever files, right? I'll just do, that's not a video. Great, we'll just do this one, right? So then it goes up, and obviously this is going to take a little bit longer. The big thing to know here is that you can title it however you want. You can put a description. Once again, not really that big a deal. When you go to visibility all the way at the end, you can go ahead and click on private. Private, unlisted, public. Let's do go to unlisted. That way, I mean, it's not going to be public. Nobody else will be able to find it. Right here, you'll see the YouTube link. Just copy that link and then drop it into either the Zoom chat or the Discord for week 1. You could do both for the simplicity of this whole segment right here. Let's drop it into Zoom, and then I'll make sure that those are all in the workshop on Discord. That way that Enki can find them, and then I can find them, because then we'll take a look at some of them together, I believe. Do we have any questions?
So just to clarify, we're really using Discord as an extra layer of an extra tool, as a layer to connect with each other outside of our workshop time. So maybe we did the mini project, or you watched the you know, you couldn't come to a workshop, and so you watched it the next day and you did your mini project and you want feedback on your mini project. You'd put that in the Discord in workshop. Say you missed workshop 2, you put it in workshop 2, and you tag Frank, Enki, or whoever the special guest instructor is going to be, and then we'll see that, watch it, give you feedback. And it's also, don't just feel like you need to engage with instructors that way, but also with each other. So anyone who's in the Discord can see your link, and so feel free to click on other people's threads and things and say, oh, I watched your thing, I really liked this, or how did you do that? So it's your chance to really, like, you know, do things together, ask questions, get feedback in another way. Because yes, while we will be able to give some people feedback in class time, we might not be able to get to everyone's little mini projects in class time. So that's the extra way that we can get that engagement. And then we're using YouTube as kind of like the collator to make it easy for yourself to be like, oh, I'm just putting all of my videos, I've got lots of hand signals, sorry. Put all my videos in YouTube so I know where they are, and they're easily transferable to either the Zoom chat or Discord. just to be completely transparent, we haven't done this before. We've all taught workshops, but this is a big undertaking for us, but we haven't done this workshop series like this where we're using these other engagement tools like Discord. So we're learning as we're doing. And if you know something that we should be doing that you're like, oh, do this thing, you know, this is a learning experience for us as well. So be like, oh, you can add this thing in Discord and it makes this 10 times easier or whatever. So feel free to share your own tips and tricks. I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to hand over to Enki.
Okay. Yes, just basic fundamental questions, so I know what everybody's page is on. Yes, you know what I meant. So everybody has a tripod, right? We got nods from everybody. Great. What kind of camera do you have, Rika?
I have a Panasonic camcorder and an Android phone and an iPad.
Okay, great. And let me see now, what do you have, Claire?
I have an iPhone as well as a Nikon D3 500 or 5000, whatever. And then it has 2 different lenses.
Okay. Oh, let me hop back in a second. What kind of, are you familiar, Claire, with any kind of editing software or comfortable with?
Photography wise, I'm pretty comfortable. Not photography wise.
Video wise.
iMovie.
iMovie. Okay, good.
That's
great.
about it.
Rika?
iMovie.
Okay, good. All right, moving on. Larissa, I have a feeling you know what you're doing.
I have a Fujifilm X-T3 with a few lenses. Only disadvantage of those is continuous. It's up to 30 minutes of recording time because of whatever whatever luxury tax laws. I also have my iPhone. I have 2 drones, and there's something else I don't remember. I'm now using DaVinci Resolve for video editing.
Okay.
Oh, I know, for audio, I got something to record just audios that I can drop audio in separately.
Okay, great. Cool. And now, Phaedra.
She popped hers in the chat.
She did. I should look at the chat, perhaps. What do we got here? Where's Phaedra? Work duties. Okay, cool. I'm Phaedra.
Google Pixel for a 5G just for recording in a Canon Mark something DSLR. Editing, she has Wondershare, HD Movie Maker, and the editor that comes with a Dell computer.
Okay. All right, good. And how about you, Murda? Are you there? She might be busy. Okay. All right, good. So it sounds like everybody's got that. And then I assume Phaedra also has a tripod. Okay, great. And then I guess the other thing is I wanted to find out what everybody's kind of like comfort zone was with putting these technologies together and being like, oh yes, I could shoot a video, I could edit something, and it would take me 10 minutes to make a 5-second video. Like what have people done already, I guess is the kind of question I'm asking. Have you made any kind of like film video? This way I can kind of, since we have such a small number of students, I'm hoping to be able to cater things a little bit to each of you specifically for your skill set. So if you can tell me, like, oh, I know how to do this, and I really don't know anything about this, but I would like to know more so that I can, achieve this project. That's what I'm trying to find out. So I guess we'll go backwards now. Oh, well, Phaedra's, I think, busy. She got called away. Oh, we'll just start over. So Rika, what is it that capable of doing what you'd like to get to able to do.
Sure. Basically, I've been using iMovie for editing work samples for grants. So, and then, you know, with the streaming stuff, adding the transition, making a type, you know, just using whatever's already in there. So I would be interested in more complex, you know, editing things, obviously not super multi-camera things, but, you know, just trying to expand upon just, I'm at, you know, ground level or sub ground level. So.
Okay. All right. And Claire?
Basically same thing. I know how to like put clips together for reels and grants. I've put together like different angles and made a video and then like laid a clean audio track over it, but not well. So just like more cleanly editing things and then, you know, cooler stuff. I want to do cool things.
Yeah. All right.
Phaedra popped in the chat that she mostly does stationary and green screen, would like to get better at transition, but especially moving the camera and following the dancer, also not great at editing. Since I will be doing this all with you, I'll tell you what I've got. I've got my iPhone. I also have a new Nikon 7500 DSLR. That is for See Chicago Dance, and I don't really know how to use it. I do have a tripod. I haven't really done much editing apart from in iMovie when I do weird things with my phone. So I would like to get better at just how to use the equipment that I have, because I can turn my camera on and shoot something, and that's about it.
Okay. Great. And then I guess Phaedra answered. Murda, you there? Probably busy. Okay. Okay. I guess structure-wise, Jenny, did you want to hop in and I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to say or interject here?
With Discord,
it could be anything.
Discord, I've got nothing. I'm actually trying to troubleshoot with Frank how to get my account fully set up, even though it says I'm there. Oh, I do have an email, Frank. I'll check that. I don't think so at this point.
Okay.
Unless you have a specific question.
No. No, I just wanted to see if you were like, okay, yeah, this is something I wanted to, that's something you would be speaking to at some point, where you're like, okay, yeah, this is a good thing for the participants to know.
I think I'm good right now.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about where I'm coming from, and just like a little bit more context. Oh, before I check all that, has everybody uploaded things to YouTube before? I know Frank just went through it. We've got yeses. I'm gonna assume Phaedra is a yes. Okay, good. So that should be relatively simple for everybody. Cool. So I come from, as I was saying, kind of like a dance documentary thing, but I like to play with different layers. Let me see if I can get this thing running. That's not it. I'll go to there. So I do, and I think this will be quiet, but I think that is playing. So I do like dance documentary, but I like to like combine things with layers and do kind of, I don't know, creative things with the camera, whatever that means. It's more of like a photography, I think, orientation. Since that's my background, I'm relatively comfortable with lenses and edits and things of that nature. So it's kind of, oops, let me kill the light on that. That's where I'm coming from, and that's like my skill set is in that zone. So if you have any kind of questions and across anything that we end up talking about through the course, please send me a message. It can be here in the chat. It can be Discord. Discord might be better. And and in my experience, whenever I was in a course, if I have a question, other people have the question. So, if you're comfortable, go ahead and make that public, and then I'll do my best to answer it. If you have questions about links, it's just like, hey, where do I find more information about doing that? Then let me know. I've got several hundred of like YouTube channels that I've already like looked at videos of just like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I? So feel free to ask me anything there. If I don't know, I don't know. But ask away. I think we all benefit from having a different, different questions, and everybody kind of hearing everybody's different answers or approaches to something. And yeah. So we covered that. YouTube, good. All right. We covered that. Okay. I wonder, how are we with time? Discord, Enki, Oh, this is great. So I was thinking, and I'm going to go back to a show of hands here. Excuse me for my cough. I was going to go into ISO and aperture and shutter speed. Is anybody like fuzzy, a little kind of fuzzy, like they wish they knew more about like ISO, shutter speed? We got one hand there, 2 hands, we got 3 hands. Sold. Okay, good. All right. So we are going to go into a little bit about ISO and shutter speed. Now I have put up in the Discord channel. Is everybody on the Discord? Is anybody not on the Discord? Let's see who's not on the Discord. Everybody's on the Discord. Sweet. Okay. So somewhere buried here somewhere, I think I put in, no, that's not workshop 1. Look in, was it reference materials? There we go. Okay. So reference materials under info. I'm going to cover this briefly, but the links that I have put in there go into deep depth about how to talking about ISO. And I found a channel that it does a pretty good job, Studio Binder. So we're going to discuss it now. And if you want like a further deep explanation, watch the video. They have lots of great examples. And I think they do a pretty good job there, and they will cover ISO. If there's something else that you would like more on, let me know and I'll put it there. So that's inside of reference materials. I'm scrolling through the Discord right now. So I think I have this here, but I will, I found out that a great book and reference is this one, something called Making Video Dance, which is this book right here, which I would recommend. Let me turn off that. Okay, so this is a book that if you like hard copy stuff, and you want to learn more about dance and specific dance and video books, then I would recommend this book here, The Making Video Dance. It's great. It comes also from like an inspiration standpoint. It's got a wide scope, and it's quite a good book. The second book that I would recommend is this one here called Cutting Rhythms. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's by Karen Perlman, and you can look that up there. There's the bottom section there. So Cutting Rhythms, and I'll just put this here. So those are the 2 books if you want a hard copy for those things. So that's that for this. Okay. Now then, okay, so we're going to cut over and we're going to start talking about ISO. Do we have any questions so far? No, a silent class. Okay. No problem. I'm a chatty person, so you know how nice it is to have feedback. So give me nods and stuff or whatever, or, you know, no, I can't bear it all. It's far too geeky. All right, so let's, oh, I lost my mouse. I found my mouse. So we are, what do I got over here? I got my background. Give me 1 second. Duh. Ah, great. Well, one light just went out. It will be back tomorrow. All right, so I got this. We've got background. Cool. All right, so I don't know how many of you have seen the exposure triangle. Is everybody familiar with the exposure triangle? Heard of it? Nobody. We got two no's. Surrender is she's stalled, but she said no. Jenny is lying. Okay, so I think this is oriented the right way. Okay, yeah, this is pretty good. This is mostly correct, and this being this kind of triangle that I'm within. As you know, a camera. Let me pull it down. So you have your camera and you have your lens. We're going to be breaking the course down into mostly internal camera discussions, getting to know and controlling the camera itself so that you can play with it to get the effects that you want out of it. And that will be a section of the course. And that's what we're going to focus on right now, is getting you control of the camera. Then we're going to talk a little bit about getting control of the lens. And then we're going to start talking about getting control of the scene of the thing that you're filming. And then it will be an integration of working with the lens, the scene, and movement, right? Because if you start moving the camera before you really know what the camera's doing, you might get lucky. You might make something. You might not know why it worked. You might not. So I'm hoping to get people to the point where, like, okay, I know why that happened, so I can recreate it on purpose this time. All right. So aperture. We're going to switch over to aperture, and let me see if this works. Desktop. Okay. And let me kill that. Cool. We don't need this right now. Give me 1 second. I had a picture to put there, but oh. All right. So you've got your camera. Is that in focus for everybody? Sorry about the light being out. I might be able to change that. Let me go here.
It's fine.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to start first with, let's go with shutter speed. Okay. So right here on most cameras, too much glare there. On most cameras, you have a setting, and on your phone, you'll have a setting, and on a physical camera, you'll have a setting. And this determines the shutter speed. This is how often the, let me turn off those triangles for a second here. Okay, so these numbers over here, right, tell you how long your camera is open and receiving light. The longer it receives light, the brighter the image is going to be. Kind of like, it works a lot like your eye, right? So photons travel through the void or whatever, and they go into your eye or your camera, or they hit something. The longer that it's open, which is the shutter speed, the more light comes in, so the brighter something is. So when you shoot film or video, I'm going to switch back and forth between film and video. You have a common frame rate, as they call it, and that is the number of pictures, Gesundheit, that are taken in a second. So original film was around 20, 24, 23, depending on how far back you go. The standard, I believe, for television is to take 23.976 frames per second. So the camera is open 23 times in 1 second. open, 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 right? And then within that, people are there, that you perceive motion, right? But it's a continuation of a bunch of little frames. So to skip ahead, usually, and I say usually because it's a creative process, there are times when you're like, okay, I don't want to do the usual. I want to do the extreme over here because there's huge advantages to that, or there's other advantages on the other side. But the middle average zone is to shoot around 24 frames a second, which, as I show you here I've got set my camera to 30. So you can shoot 30 frames a second. And that's your average. Things will look smooth if you shoot at 30 frames a second. If people are moving, and you'll see a slight blur, if things are like this imagery here, actually, depending on how, you're going to see like a natural kind of like blur, which is a combination of physical effects and zoom, etc. But this is natural, and people kind of like are used to that because we've seen a lot of television and movies, and your eye, even like when you just shake your hand in front of your face, this is slightly blurry. So some people call that the film look because it's got a slight blur and it's not tack sharp. And so that's an aesthetic that if you want to go there, then usually 24 frames a second is what you would set your camera at. Now, that's the baseline. So the only thing you need to take home from this is that your shutter speed, if you want your average person walking down the street shot, then 24 frames a second is probably going to be okay on an average cloudy kind of day. Cloudy, sunny, average day. Now, if you want to slow somebody down, like you're doing dance, right? And you're recording dance and you're saying, oh, I want that movement. And I know later on when I edit this film, I want to slow that down. And I want it to be slow, but I don't want it to be like, can't, and it's slower, but it's jerky, right? So if you start with 24 frames a second and you slow it down by like 50%, right? So you've gone from 24 frames and now you're going to say, okay, I'm going down to 12 frames down here. If you just do 12 frames a second, then it's going to be a little jerky. And if you look at old films from like early times, Edison times, you'll see this kind of like jerkiness. And if you want, I'll throw a link. Let me know in the chat if you guys want me to throw a link of some sort of like historical film that shows you this like 12 frames a second. So that's if you shoot at 24 and you slow it down. If you want that to be smooth, then instead of shooting 24 frames a second, you're going to change your shutter speed, or sorry, your frames per second. You're going to change this and you're going to make it faster, right? So before it was at 30, I can shift it to 60. And if you cannot, I can even go up to 250 frames a second here on the camera. So has everybody like shot slow motion on your phones? No? Are you familiar with the setting on your phone where you change it and it shows up as 24 frames a second, or sorry, you can do like a slow-mo on the phone. I'm going to show that real quick here, just for people to have this setting if they're going to be shooting on their phone. Oops, so you can kind of see a blurry thing there. Let me switch. If that's, I think it's blurry, but you can kind of see this on the phone setting. Okay, so within iPhones, I'm sorry, I don't have an Android on me. There's an option that says video, and then next to that, there's the slow-mo. If you drag it over, you're now in slow-mo mode. And that is gonna let you take about 250 frames a second. So it's 10 times faster. It's taking 10 times more pictures per second. Right? which is the same thing that the camera was doing, right? The camera also has the capacity to take 200 shutters, a high shutter speed. What that allows you to do is that if you have somebody moving and you know you want to slow them down later, you take 10 times as many photographs, right, which you combine into a video, and that way you can play it back super slow. So you take 250 frames a second, and now you slow it down by a tenth, and suddenly it's 10 times slower, but it's just as smooth as something that was 240-ish frames a second. So the take home, if you're shooting movement and you want to slow it down, you shoot a faster frames per second. If you want to slow it down by half, you've got a movement and you want that to be 50% slower, then you would go from 24 frames a second to 48 frames a second. If you're going to make it really slow and you're going to go to 1/4 speed. Oh, Jenny had to go. Okay. Bye. Let me start over. So if you want 1/4 speed, then you would double it twice. You go from 24 frames up to 48 frames, and then you double that again, and yeah, you double that again, so 48. So you'd be about 100 frames a second. And that way you can slow things down to 1/4 the speed. That being said, right, you're taking more pictures per second. So your file size is going to get a little bit bigger. It's not too bad, but it's just something to keep in your mind. It's just like, oh, I had a memory card, I recorded one day, and it took me, I had 20 minutes of recording time. And then another day I shot in slow motion and I only had 1/4 of the memory. And that's because it was capturing more pictures. It can work that way. It depends on some of the settings. So that's how you would slow something down. You shoot it 24 frames a second and you slow it down by shooting faster frames per second. On the other side, let's say you want to speed something up. That's moving, and usually you want to speed something up that's either moving slowly or, and this happens a lot with dance, you want to change your pacing. The pacing is like, okay, that was fine, but I wish I had done that a little bit faster, or the dancers had done that a little bit faster, and so you want to speed that up. That's relatively easy. You can just play back a little bit faster in your editing program. Right? So you can still shoot at 24 frames a second, and if you want to speed it up, it's easy to speed it up because you've already captured the frames at 24, and you're going to play it back faster. So you're going to kind of compress the time. Compressing time, you don't have to change anything. You can just play it back faster. I don't know in iMovie, I haven't used iMovie in a while. I use Final Cut for the most part. If you have any questions about Final Cut and you use Final Cut, you can ask me. I've been using it for many years. Has any of you tried within iMovie to speed things up within iMovie? Yes? Okay. So it works in iMovie? I see Claire's nodding. She says yes. Kind of. Okay. Okay. The other example of taking something and instead of shooting at 24 frames a second, but of taking something and now you're slowing down and you're shooting, instead of every 24 frames a second, you're shooting, say, at 12 frames a second, or just 5 frames a second, or maybe even 1 frame every second. That would be time lapse, where you've probably seen clouds and people who do time lapses of clouds. And there, let me see if I have an example handy. I don't have an example quite handy right now. There, what you do is you have your clouds and you shoot you can select time lapse on your phone. That's a fine way to do it. But if you have your camera and you want to, for some reason, use your camera, then you do a time lapse, and that time lapse is probably only taking something like 5 frames a second. I'm sorry, yeah, about 5 frames a second, depending on how fast the clouds are moving. And that way, when you play it back at 24 frames a second. So you've taken 5 frames a second, and now you're playing it back at 24 frames a second. So 5 seconds, and I'm going to round up 24 frames a second to 25. So if you have 5 frames a second and you want to play back at 25 frames a second, you're doing it 5 times faster. 5 times 5. And thus the clouds will now, instead of being this jittery thing, which is infrequent, it looks continuous because they're moving so fast. So when things are slow, you can take infrequent photographs or infrequent frame rates and then speed it up. On the other side, if things are fast, I'm repeating myself, I know. You're shooting, you want to slow down something that's fast, so you shoot high frame rate. Any questions?
So you kind of think of it as opposite.
Yeah, you think of it as opposite. If you want to slow something down, you shoot fast. And if you want to speed something up, you shoot slow.
Can we go back to the triangle that you had on screen?
Sure.
And just tell us what all of those different things mean.
Sure. Okay, so thank you for bringing me back to the basics. I'm moving my mouse, but clearly you can't see my mouse movement. Okay, on the side there, where it says shutter speed, you can see something where it says on the top part of shutter speed, it says 1/250th, and then 1/125th, 160, 130, 1/15th, blah, blah, blah. So that's the shutter speed, how frequently the photographs are being taken. Now,
and so the 1 is the second, and then the 250 would be 250 shots per second.
No.
Because what does that mean?
Right. So I'm going to just keep them both up, just for simplicity. It's this way, backwards. I know. Wait. Let me. Flip to both, didn't it? No, it said okay. So far, good. So over here, I'm going to dim me. When you are on the camera, you have how long the aperture is open, and that's what these numbers are. These numbers are how long your camera, if it was a mechanical shutter, the digital ones now are digital, but if it was a mechanical shutter, it would be open for this, 1 second and then close. The next, and this one up here is that the camera is open for 2/50th of a second. So that's how long your mechanical shutter is open. When you also have the capacity of okay, so let's say the camera is open for 2/50th of a second. Actually, I'm going to switch it. I'm going to drag it down to this thing here, which is like 1/50th of a second. All right, so let's say this is the 1/50th of a second. So it's open for 1/50th of a second. Because of the aesthetics of film and the way we have gotten used to filming at 24 frames a second with the blur that we're naturally accustomed to. Oops, yeah. So with this kind of like light blur there, that we're used to that. That means that to get this 1/50th and a little bit of blur, right, which is an aesthetic, to get the 1/50th and a little bit of blur, you are shooting at 24 frames a second. So on the camera here, I'm going to switch back over. Over here, this thing, you're shooting, and I'm going to reduce this. No, wrong one. You're shooting at, I'm going to switch this over. So here it says 30, but I can also, sorry, this says 30. It's going to be open and closed for 1/30th of a second. That's how long the mechanical shutter would be open. 1/30th of a second. And when you shoot at 1/30th of a second, in order to get the blur, the light blur, your frames per second, that's the number of photographs being taken in 1 second, are going to be actually 1/60th of a second. So it's a multiple of 2. Your shutter speed can be 60, or in this case 30, but then your frames per second would be half that, which would be 15. In order to get this light blur, and that's in order to do what's called the 180-degree rule. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the 180-degree rule. The simple thing is this. If you're shooting a regular film at 24 frames a second, you want your shutter speed to be twice that. So if you're shooting 24 frames a second, then your shutter speed is 48. And what that provides is this light blur. And that essentially runs, is it consistent? That also works consistently if you want to slow down a dancer that's I'm gonna forget that for a second. Sticking with the 24. You're shooting at 24 frames a second, 24 FPS, and your shutter, so within that 1/24th, half of it is dark and half of it is exposed. So imagine this whole width of my screen is divided into 24 slots. And then in this little section of this slot over here, half of that is exposed and half of it is dark. And then you go to the next 1/24th of a second, and then your camera is open for half the time. The shutter is open for half the time and half of it's dark. And then the next fraction of a second, it's open for half the time, half a second. That goes all the way across. So this half of 1/24th, we're dividing this section into 24. I can just use a ruler, right? If we're dividing this is 12. Half of 12 is 1/24th. Does that make sense? So if I take this up to here, and this is 12, so this is 12 across, half of each division is 24th. And the reason you do that, of doubling your shutter speed, is double the frame rate. So the frame rate is 24 frames a second. Your shutter speed itself, the mechanical shutter speed, is double that. So 24 at 48. And that's so you can get this like little light shimmer. Now, that's, as I said, it's an aesthetic. If you want, so that's soft, right? So emotionally, if you're trying to film somebody and you're trying to maintain a kind of like soft aesthetic, then you might want that half ratio of doubling the frame rate. Now, if you want something to be punchy and sharp and gritty, and you're looking at something that you want it to be really kind of like almost mechanical, and it's obviously this is my interpretation. There's no right interpretation, it's just individual one. But if you want it kind of harsher, then you can change that. And if you're shooting 24 frames a second, then you can make it so that you are, instead of 48th of a second shutter speed, you can make it even less. So you can go from 48th to 96th. And that will make the image less blurry as an object moves, because it's an even smaller fraction. It's frozen for a tighter frame. And it'll give you more of like an HD. Have you seen, like, when you look at sports, they shoot it at high frame rates, and they shoot also very with like a 30th or a 60th of a second.
So like when everything is really, really sharp and like super in focus. That's like those things that you watch on TV that are so in focus that it looks weird.
Yes. Yes. So that's a thing, and it's a place that you can play. When you understand that you want your shutter speed to be twice your frame rate, then you can say, I want something soft. So I just use the 2:1 ratio. And if I want something tack sharp, then I use like a 1:4 ratio. So I shoot at 24 frames, but I've got a 96th of a second shutter speed. That's the space there for creativity and sharpness within that. I'm not sure if I explained that well. Does everybody kind of get what I've gotten there? Yeah, go ahead. Any questions?
So what's the 180 rule then?
So the 180, okay, so the origins of the 180 are well explained in the videos. And to summarize it, a brief description is what used to happen is you had the old mechanical shutters, the film was going past and the film was moving. Actually it would stop and go again. But while the film is in position and it's being recorded, they had a little wheel, and the wheel would rotate around, and the wheel was half dark, half light. So as the wheel went around, I'm not doing this well, I'm going to do a horizontally representation. So imagine this covers half, this covers the other half of my hand. So let's say this is the picture. This, my hand is the photograph that's being captured. It's just a photograph. So now it's covering this for one half, and then it would block, and the other half would be exposed. And it was a wheel that went around. And if you wanted something to look sharp, you went with, if you wanted something to look soft, you did 180. And if you wanted something to look more even softer, then you'd expose this thing longer, so there's more chance for things to move while the film was there. So you ever shoot stars at night and you do like a long exposure, you do like 30 seconds, and then you see that the star has like, it's a little streak. And if you shoot the star for like 5 seconds or like a minute, then the streak is longer, right? So the longer your lens is open, the longer that streak is. If you shoot it shorter, if you only shoot 1 second and the star hasn't moved much, so it's less of a streak. The 180 rule was a mechanical way to always keep not always, but it was a mechanical way to keep the film exposed for the same amount of time that would allow for a little bit of blur. I don't have a mechanical circle here, but look at the video, and he talks about shutter speed there, and it's the mechanics. But the point is, the origins are mechanical and ancient, and actually no longer even relevant because we're shooting mostly digital now. But if you have a mechanical camera, then you can change the shutter there. If you shoot, I'm not sure actually how 16mm works, but maybe somebody else knows there. Any other questions about that?
I have one more question that I always just hear about, and maybe it's a mechanical ancient thing, but so what's the f-stop?
We will come to that. That is aperture.
Okay.
I'm gonna get there. But let me finish up with one other detail on shutter speed. So when you open and close the shutter, right, which is effectively doing this, right? If I'm open, if I do this really fast, you can't even notice, and I'm there. If I have it longer, then it would get brighter and brighter. I'm going to switch back to this. No, this one. This is the shutter speed, right? I'm going to change this to shutter speed. Now I'm making this faster. So these are fractions of a second. So this is open now, 1/25th of a second, right? Or 2/50th of a second, which if you look over here in the diagram, this is fractions of a second. The less time that the shutter is open, that means there's less light getting in. So as you go up this scale, as your shutter speed increases, less light is getting in because it's open for it's a briefer period of time. So down here, you're open for a long time. 1 whole second, you're just right? And then over here, it's like, so you heard less sound over the time versus it lasts longer. Light's doing the same thing. The amount of signal that's coming to the camera, a lot of signal down here, less signal up here. The more signal that comes in, the longer the light comes in, the brighter the image is. So as you increase your shutter speed, right, you're taking a lot of little pictures, the picture is actually getting dimmer, right? The less light that you let in, the faster the shutter speed, less light gets in, and so the dimmer your picture is. The way you compensate for that is you have to shoot with a lot of light. So when you're shooting at a high frame rate or a fast shutter speed, if you're shooting up here, you need more light because it's open briefer. It's like traffic. You know, when the light's green and it's open for a long time, a lot of traffic gets through. If it's only open for 5 seconds, you don't get that much traffic. So if you want to get a lot of cars through, you need to, well, I'm not going to go down that analogy, but so you need a lot of light to shoot up here, right? Correspondingly, you need, in the mechanical thing here, if I shoot at 2/50th of a second, I need a lot of light because this number 250 is up here, right? So when you're shooting a high shutter speed, you need more light. So you can shoot high shutter speeds and slow things down if you want to later on a bright sunny day. Bright sunny days are good for up here. If it's already dark, right? If the day is dim or you're shooting indoors and you don't have a lot of light, it's very hard to shoot up here because you don't have a lot of light. And that's why you need to bring in extra lights to boost up the amount of signal that your camera is going to be getting. Is that clear to everybody? Does the physics make sense? Okay, great. All right, so you need lights. Basically, you need a giant sun-like source up here, and over here, you don't need as much sunlight source. That being said, down here, things are going to be blurrier because when you're open for a long time, there's more chance for something to move. If you recall the old pictures of people, you know, way back in daguerreotype days in the 1915s, 1905s, and 1800s, they had to sit super still because otherwise everything was blurry. Because they were open. Actually, they weren't even at 1 second. They were like way down here. They were open for like 30 seconds, and you just had to hold perfectly still so you wouldn't be blurry. Now we shoot kind of comfortably up here. Okay, so that's shutter speed. You need more light, you need less light. Now I'm going to start switching over to aperture. All right, so let me get this out of the way and let me switch over to aperture. Great. Okay, you have a lens. Now, I'm going to deal with this with a mechanical lens. I'm going to come back to iPhone lenses and cell phone lenses afterwards. I'm going to deal with this, the old school first. So you've got your lens, and if you can see there, you've got some numbers on the lens. Let me go this way. Can everybody see these numbers over here? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So this says 2.8, 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, 16, 22. And this little white line, I'm dialing it towards the black dot, the white line. I'm changing what's called the aperture. and it's going from 2.8 to 22. As I do that, right, I'm going to go back to 2.8. I'm going to turn the lens down now. And you can see that. Now I'm going to turn it again. It's at 2.8. As I turn it towards 22, you see how the center is getting smaller?
Yes.
Okay, so the aperture is closing. The aperture is that thing just like your eye. It's closing, and I'm now at 22. So 22, small hole. When I open up to 2.8, big hole, right? I'm at 2.8, big hole, down to 22, small hole. And all I'm doing is changing this over here. I'm not changing the focus, I'm changing the aperture. All right, so what this does, as you can see mechanically, when you open up this thing, more light is getting in because it's a bigger hole. It's a bit like water flow. So when you have an aperture of a small number, more light gets in. Big numbers, less light. So it's an inverse relationship, right? You have to think that, okay, when I say 2, I'm getting a lot of light. And when I say 22, I'm getting more light in. To go back to the triangle, now over here, I'm sorry, down here, right? See where it says f2.8 in this little triangle? So that's large opening. And over here, f22 is a small opening, just like I demonstrated in the actual lens. So this is controlling the amount of light that's coming in. This has a lot of light coming in, and this has less. So 2.8 allows a lot of light, and 22 allows very little light. Now you have to think about that in terms of like, okay, how much light do I have in the room? Assume you're not changing the light in the room at all. Let's say you're shooting indoors, okay? Or it's a bright sunny day. You can control the amount of light that comes in. How bright is your shot? So brighter shot is going to be over here because it's a wider opening. Dimmer shot is down here. So if you want to make something dim, you close the aperture and the number gets bigger. Everybody with me? Okay. So this process of allowing light in is a way for you to control basically the brightness. Like imagine this is me controlling the aperture. This would be 2.8 and this would be 22. In order for me to get this to be brighter, I have to add more light, right? So I can't, okay. It was sticking a second ago. In order for me to, I'm controlling the amount of light that's coming through the aperture. Now, as I'm exposed right now, right? Let's say that right now, hypothetically, we have an aperture of this middle one, right? And the middle one is an f8, right? Which over here, it's like f8. I'm turning this to match f8, and now it's in the middle zone of light coming through this hole. So it's in the middle. So let's say that's where we're at. If I wanted to keep this number, this f8, I could change but still make things brighter. Let's say I wanted to keep this, but I wanted to make things brighter. Which way would I change the shutter speed in order to make the room brighter by just changing the shutter speed? I can't hear anything.
You'd keep your shutter speed so it's open longer.
Right. Correct. So if I want to keep F8, because I've opened it this much, I'm keeping it there, and I want to add more light, but it's just too dim, then I open up my shutter longer. And if I want to make things dimmer, and I want to keep my aperture, I could slow things down by taking faster photographs per second. So these two sides of the triangle allow you to control how much light is coming into your camera. I can control it either by changing my aperture, or I can control it by how long the aperture is open. Not how long, but how long the mechanical shutter is open. So they're both ways of controlling it. Now, they are matched actually 1-to-1. When I go from F8 and I go up to the next section, which would be like F11. If I go from F8 to F11, that's one, let's call it click, right? It's called one f-stop. So the difference between this and this is one step. It's just like taking steps, right? This is one, this is one, this is one, this is one. The difference is what you count, right? So you're going from F8 to 11, that's one stop, second stop, third stop. Each of these is also one step, and they all double, right? So the doubling on this thing is going from like a 60th of a second to a 30th of a second. The fraction is by a half, or a multiple of 2, but the steps are the same steps that you have at the aperture if you do a multiple of 2. So you go from 1 second exposure to a half second, to a quarter of a second, to an eighth, to a 16th, 32nd, 64th, etc. Each of those is one step. So you can just change on your camera when you're here. I'm going back to this thing. When you change this one click, right? So if I go from 60th of a second to 30th of a second, that's one click. If I want to keep the same amount of light, then what I do is I say, okay, I've gone from 60th to 30th. So I'm adding light by letting this open longer. Now, what I need to do is I need to subtract light from the aperture. So I added it here by going from 60 to 30, and then I subtracted it here by going one click. So every time I change one here, I change one there. And what that results in is the same amount of light is going to be going in. Does that kind of make sense? Question, please.
Why would you change, why would you change one? Like, what's the difference in changing them in terms of like letting light in? Like, why would you change your aperture to let in more light as opposed to just changing your shutter speed? Actually, as I asked that question, I think I answered it in my head, but can you explain it anyway?
Sure. Great question. And it's something that will definitely come up all the time. When let's say you're videoing something, and you have your dancers, right? And you've got one dancer in the front and you've got one dancer in the back. They might not both be in focus, right? So you might be like, okay, I like this person in focus, but I want this person in focus too. And we're going to come to this in a second. But as I change the aperture here, in order for me to get both foreground and background in focus, I need to have the number on the ring be bigger, which is actually a smaller hole. So this is one of the limitations or aspects of lenses, is that when you change the depth of focus, which is what aperture also does, it changes it's the size of the hole and it's letting less light in, and it also changes what's in focus, the depth of field. So the reason you want to change the aperture is because you might want the background to be blurry, right? And you don't want to move the camera, and you don't want to change your shutter speed, right? You might be like, you know what? People are moving this fast. I want to keep that blur as it is exactly, but I want to change the what's in focus and what's not in focus. That's when you're like, okay, then I need to change my aperture. And a lot of times, you know, when you're filming something, you might start with like a close-up on somebody's, let's say you're doing a close-up of somebody's face, and then you just turn the camera and you're like, okay, now we're switching over here and we're shooting over the shoulder. You're going to say, oh, I need to change my focus. That's one thing. But I also might want to change the depth there. So that's why you would change that. The other thing, okay, so that's one side of it. One side is you're controlling your depth of field. So I have, let me say like, let's do this. Is this, no, how about this one? Okay, great, right? So in this photograph here, we've got a foreground subject, right? And then they happen to be at an oil protest thing. And in the background, we've got a background. And we don't want it to be too sharp, but we also don't want it to be blurred out completely. So in this case, you're using, or you would be using something with an f-stop relatively small number. So maybe f4, maybe f2.8, right? And that way you can kind of control. Now the big part here for filmmakers is that I've lost myself. Great. Is that when you control the focus, and if you have something in focus versus something that's out of focus, you're controlling what people are looking at. If this was a video and you shifted focus from the foreground person to the background advertisement, you would be controlling what people are going to look at, because our natural neurological reflex is that we look at what's in focus. We don't really look at what's blurry. And our attention usually goes to what is in focus. So you're controlling the viewer's eye through focus and blur. And we'll go more into that shortly. I've lost track of time. It's 2:30.
We should take a quick little break, stretch our legs. But I do like this idea of, controlling what people are really looking at. And that everything that we're talking about of how much light is let in and depth of field enables us to direct the viewer of like what we as the filmmaker want the viewer to see. Yeah. And so controlling the camera gets us there.
Yes. So that's a big point of aperture, is controlling what's in. And let's take a break now, and then I'll talk briefly, and then we'll have the mini project. All right. All right. So I'm gonna. Hey, can anybody hear me? Yes. No. Yes. We have some nods. Okay. Cool. All right. So now I'm gonna get slightly more advanced briefly. So this is another lens over here, and it's of course aperture. It's a mechanical lens, and you can see that it's got the f-stops here of 1.2 to, it goes up to 16, right? So this one as well, as I change the aperture, it opens and closes. Now, when it comes to filming DSLR versus cell phones, a mechanical shutter, a mechanical aperture like the one I just showed you here, right? That they're bigger, they're heavier, but they also give you more range. when you shoot on a cell phone, they cannot change as much as a mechanical. So a cell phone might just have a range of something like 2 to 8. So when people are filming and they're saying, "Oh, how come I'm shooting and it doesn't look, like something from, Steven Spielberg or some other director," right? The cell phones have a limited aperture change capacity. They don't have the range and aperture changes that a mechanical shutter has. So that's why if you're shooting for dance or something film-wise, there's limitations within the cell phone, and we're going to explore that in the project. But I just want to get that out there. And the other thing to know is that the smaller the number gets, like this lens here goes down to 2.8. As the number gets smaller, if you can go down to a f2.0 or an f1.4 or 1.2, generally the lens gets more and more expensive. And that's just because of the engineering required in order to build that. So if you want, now the advantage of that is that you can shoot with very shallow depth of field. Small number, small depth of field. So you can get a close-up and you just have the person's eye in focus and nothing else. The background is crazy blurry. Their ears are blurry, their nose is blurry, just their eyes in focus with a small number. But you might want that. So that's what aperture can do, and also the costs kind of associated with that. That being said, because of the physics of cell phone cameras, they're really good at getting something really close up and getting that in focus and blurring out the background because the lens is so small. But so you gain a sharp focus when you're close to something with a cell phone, but as you get further away, you lose that shallowness, which is why cell phones look really good kind of like in this distance, but with a mechanical shutter or mechanical lens, you can't actually get that close. Like everything's blurry. Anything within a foot is blurry, so you can't get there. So cell phone is better sometimes for that. So you can also plan on that in your shooting to saying like, I have a close-up, I'll shoot that with my cell phone because I can then get really close. Even if I had a good lens, I can't get that close. So that's just something to keep in mind, and we'll go more into that. All right, I don't think we're gonna get to ISO today. We'll come to ISO tomorrow, or sorry, on Saturday. But it's the last part of the exposure triangle there that I was talking about. This final leg there is talking about aperture over here. I'm sorry, talking about ISO, and we'll come to that, but just not today. But so what we can do is we can talk about the mini project. Now, where did I put it? All right. So, well, okay. Okay. So I'm going to give everybody 15 minutes to do a little film. It doesn't have to be good. I expect it to be bad. That's great. The idea is just to play, have fun, do something. If it doesn't work, wonderful. If it works, great. If you don't learn anything, that's the worst, right? So try something that doesn't work, and then you'll learn something. But here's the task. You've been hired to do a 15-second commercial for a chair designer, but they can't get you a prototype. So you have to do it with whatever chair you have with you. I posted it in the chat. So you're gonna make a 15-second commercial for a chair. you've got 15 minutes to make it. And then you're going to post it up on YouTube. And then we're going to look at it and see what we learned from the experience. All right. Is there any questions?
Should we be thinking about anything that we've talked about today, or are we just doing a thing? And is it just movement based? Can we talk? Like, are there any other parameters?
I don't want any other parameters. I want you to incorporate whatever you think you can achieve in 15 minutes. Right? So focus on that. I'm curious what people will make. So I'm actually not going to give too much instruction. I just kind of want to see what people do with that. So however far you want to push it, whatever you think you can achieve in 15 minutes, then go for that. If you think you can incorporate something about aperture, fine. If you think you can't, fine. I just kind of want to see what you can do with the 15 minutes that you have. All right, so I'm going to say go, and then we'll come back at, I guess, 2:55. So at 2:55, already have your video being uploaded to YouTube, and it's only 15 seconds. Do not make it longer than that. Okay. All right. So go have fun, play, and I'll see you at 2:55.
Enki, Kanisha asked a question. So maybe while we're playing, you can put the ISO shutter pickup. They just want to take a screenshot.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we'll also put it in the Discord, but I think just for ease for Kanisha. Yeah. And Kanisha, there it is.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and try that? My only issue there is that I don't know if we can, if anybody's still working on the computer or something like that, they'll be locked out of doing anything. Unless I guess there's a way to get out of Zoom. But yeah, go ahead and do that. Oh.
Okay. All right. So I know I saw Claire's right away, so I'm gonna put hers up. That was totally random. Stop. Okay, unmute. This already looks fantastic. And let's go to Zoom again. Share screen. As we look for YouTube. Excellent. Share. Full screen. Everybody can see this?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. There we go. Excellent.
I mean, with cute puppies, Claire has to win. Not that it's a competition, but I think
that was awesome.
I know. I was really trying to make it about the chair, but of course it becomes about my dog. So,
which brings a great point. It's like we look at what's moving.
Yeah.
So, oh, what's next, Frank?
Oh, okay. We can do. I don't know who this is. So we're kind of posting stuff all over the place too. So remember, workshop 1 to post it.
Okay.
I believe this is Rika. Oh, okay. Hold on one second. This looks amazing as well. Okay, here we go. Here, share.
Excellent.
Okay.
Love the sound. That was nice, dramatic. Sound makes a big difference.
Okay. And then let's see. I'm gonna have to download this real quick. Okay. So, oh, 2 seconds. Okay, this from Larissa. I think that's it. Okay. Everybody see what I'm looking at?
Yeah, but I can see it only uploaded like the first 3 seconds. So
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, so
Okay.
discuss.
Oh,
I like where it was going though.
yeah.
Yeah, so Larissa, well, okay, I see the Vimeo thing. Wait, what? Go away. Let's see if it's on Vimeo. Vimeo works too, people. I mean, if you already have an account.
Oh, I realized I just looked at it on Vimeo. I don't my export only did it. Yeah, whatever. I think it has 4 seconds on the Vimeo because my export didn't complete.
All right, that's quite all right. Let's see if we can go ahead and try re-export it. Don't feel like you're in any rush, and then we'll post it in the for everybody else to see. And I think the last person is Surinder, unless I missed somebody. Okay, we'll just load this up. You know what? Pause. Stop. There you go. Talking to my computer like a dog. Not listening. Stop. Okay, YouTube, share. Okay, everybody can see. Excellent.
All right.
Great. I missed anybody? Did I miss anybody? I think that's everybody.
I failed myself. My thing is still uploading. So much for using your phone for uploading in this house while you're trying to do a Zoom meeting. I'm glad it prioritized this though, over that. Okay. We got a couple of messages. Okay, new link. So I guess so next week, since we're running slight on time here, next week we'll have the next course, the next section of the class. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And I should know what we're going to be talking about, but
so Saturday, our special guest is Millicent Johnny, who is a really fantastic dancer and filmmaker who's worked all over the place. It's currently based in Florida. Millicent will be joining us for the full 3 hours and doing a presentation. We're really talking about aesthetic next week. Is our kind of like topic of discussion, and Millicent will be presenting a mini project for us to do. So I think no, next week, Saturday. It's not next week, it's Saturday. Will be really fun. Enki, what are we going to cover on Saturday from you?
From Saturday from me is going to be we're going to finish with ISO. So we're going to go into that. I'm going to talk a bit about something called dynamic range, which is the kind of the number of blacks to white that you have in your camera. We'll go a little bit more into depth of field. And then very importantly, we'll be talking about variable ND filters. And the focus is going to be on aesthetics. So we're going to be talking a bit about aesthetics and how that relates to cell phones versus DSLRs. And there'll be, again, another mini project. That's the gist of it. I wanted to check in with everybody just before we go, is everybody okay? Just a few more seconds. Is there any, oh, I wanted to say, if you look in the Discord link under reference materials, somebody was asking about the exposure triangle, and if I could put a link up to that. There is a book in there, which has also been linked here in the chat section. Frank posted to everyone the link to the exposure triangle book, which is a free ebook, which goes into good depth about the exposure and the triangle, and it's where I got that image from. So if you want to see more there, look in the Discord channel reference materials, and there's a lot there, so that's a good thing to look at. And then if you have any other feedback or questions or things that you want more a discussion or something fuzzy or whatever, go ahead and send me a message in through Discord, or you can also post it here in the chat section, and I will look into that. And I think that's about it. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for contributing and playing with your chairs and paying attention and engaging and bringing your puppies to the show. They stole it. Yeah, that's it for now. I will now, just to reiterate, we're going to be switching after the 5th section. We're going to start going into moving of the camera. So right now, we just want to kind of cover the fundamentals. I kind of want to see what you guys can do, and also getting you to play a little bit with maybe editing. Thanks for everybody who put in sound. Awesome. We're going to keep leaning into that. And we're going to try to ramp up these kind of like exercises so that people can be like, okay, how quickly can I get something done that I might want to get done? And then we'll move that into smoother camera motion, and ultimately we'll try to get into a harmony with our camera and start thinking about the camera as a character and its relationship to movement. And that's where we're heading to right now, just baby steps, and then we're going to just throw ourselves down the mountain.
If you can't make any of the classes, remember to register, and we will send you the link to the recording that happens. Frank will do a little bit of editing since we've had a bit of kind of downtime in the class. So we'll edit things together. We'll have sections that you can watch. And then you can still do the mini projects that we present, even if you are not joining us live, and you can pop it in the Discord and, make sure to Enki or one of us or everybody, so that we can also comment. So feel free to go to the Discord, watch everyone's, and be like, comment on each other's, so that we can get more feedback from each other to say, why did you do this? How did you do this? What are you thinking? Because the more we talk to each other, the more this is going to benefit all of us, and I include myself in that as well. So spread the word. People can still register. They can still register for this one to receive the link. So just any questions, just stay in touch with us. Thank you so much. I hope to see you all again, either Saturday or soon.
Oh, I forgot to add, bye-bye. Last thing, I'll also be talking about some apps that you can use on your phones. And we'll go into that a little bit, not necessarily next week, but we'll be getting into that. If you're like, I'm sticking with my phone, I want to get the most out of that, that's great. And I will also be putting up more links to other inspirational kind of films. And I'll create a channel there, maybe just like inspiring films of dance. And I'll put that in the Discord. So that should be up before class tomorrow, or before class Saturday.
You've registered for Saturday, you'll receive a confirmation email tomorrow.
All right. So this class, we're not going to give feedback on the videos that everybody made, because it was just a comfortable time for people to pull around and learn whether they can upload and if there's any bugs in that system. But in the future, we will be providing feedback to the students on these mini projects or other works that they've posted.